reviewing the story of Pinocchio. The story takes place with a master puppet artist named Geppetto. He creates this amazing puppet in which he decides to name Pinocchio. He loved Pinocchio so much that upon a shooting star in the sky, he begged and he pleaded that Pinocchio will one day become a real boy. As he slept that night, the magical blue fairy entered his home. She looked down at Geppetto and she said, "You have been so loving and kind to others, and you have asked for nothing in return. For this, I will grant you your wish." She then looked over at Pinocchio and she said, she waved her wand above his head saying, "Little puppet made of time, wake." So Pinocchio then risen and he began to walk and stumble. He looked over at the blue fairy and he said, "Am I a real boy?" with excitement in his voice. The blue fairy looked kindly at Geppetto and she said, "Not quite yet, Pinocchio, for you must prove yourself to be brave and truthful and unselfish. Then and only then will you become a real boy." Oh, then she also advised him that Jiminy Cricket will be there to act as his conscience. She requested that she had Jiminy Cricket with him the whole time and to seek guidance for him and to let his conscience be his guide. That night, as soon as the blue fairy left, Geppetto woke up to hear a weird noise. What is that sound, he thought. He woke up and he looked and wow, long before his eyes, it was Pinocchio. He had risen, he was walking, he was talking. Geppetto was so ecstatic, he jumped up, he gave Pinocchio a hug, and then he introduced him to his family, which would be his cat Figaro and the fish Cleo. He was so excited that they finally laid down for Pinocchio had school in the morning. Upon rising for school in the morning, he got up and him and Jimmy the Cricket decided that they were going to walk to school together. When they were walking, he was greeted by two men, one named Honest John, the other one named Gideon. They invited Pinocchio to just pop by Stromboli's puppet show so that he could just watch the puppet show. Pinocchio thought there was nothing wrong with that. Jiminy Cricket then chimed in and he said, "Pinocchio, we're supposed to be heading straight to school. Where are we going?" Pinocchio looked over at Jiminy Cricket and he said, "You know what? I'm going to go with Honest John and Gideon. I would love to see a puppet show." So he heads off and he ignores the advice of his friend Jiminy the Cricket. Once he arrives at Stromboli's puppet show, he enjoys it so much, for he was the star of a major production. Everyone was coming to see this amazing puppet dance and sing and interact without any strings. The owner, Stromboli, decided that he really, really loved to have Pinocchio part of his act. He saw the crowds just lining up to see this puppet without strings. Finally, Pinocchio got tired. He was exhausted. He said to Stromboli, "It's time for me to go home. My papa will be looking for me soon." Stromboli looked over at him and then looked at the crowd, looked over at him, and he grabbed him and he put him in a cage, locking him up. Pinocchio begged and he pleaded and he shook the cage and he did everything in his power to get free, but he couldn't get free. Magically, the blue fairy came down, and when she came down, she looked at Pinocchio and she said, "What happened?" Pinocchio then looked at her and he proceeded to tell her an untruthful story. He said, two men with really big eyes, they came, they grabbed me, and they forced me here. The queen, or the fairy looked at him and she wondered what was going on. She let him continue. He continued and he continued with stories and lies upon massive lies, not noticing that every lie his nose got longer and longer. Guys, stop. Until finally there was a long nose that had grown branches on it. Now, the queen or the fairy looked over at him and she said to him, "Now, Pinocchio, a lie keeps going and going until it's as clear as day, like the nose on your face." As she pointed to his nose, Pinocchio understood what she meant because he continued to lie until his nose was so long that it had grew flowers and tree branches. So the fairy said to him, "I will help you out this one time, Pinocchio." With that, she waved her wand, and Pinocchio was suddenly freed. He was so ecstatic to get out of there, he went running. He had the mission to get home. But who did he run into? Honest Abe again. Honest Abe, oh, he's so good at conning kids. He said to him, "Hey, Pinocchio, you don't want to miss out on this excellent opportunity. Look at all the boys, part of the boys club here. We're going to go down to Pleasure Island." Pleasure Island? Wow, pleasure sounds like a lot of fun, Pinocchio thought. As his conscience, which would be Jiminy the Cricket, chimes in yet again, he said to him, "Pinocchio, I thought that we were going to head straight home." Pinocchio looked over at Jiminy the Cricket and he said, "Well, one more stop won't hurt. We're just going to go down to Pleasure Island just for a while." So he hopped on the bus with the other kids. When he hopped on the bus, he ran into someone that he liked a lot. And he began to tell him all about Pleasure Island. He said that there'd be cake and ice cream. There would be no rules, no cops. They could do whatever they wanted when they got to Pleasure Island. When they got there, they found that it would be something completely different. There was actually a mysterious man there taking the children and turning them into donkeys. As he didn't even notice this was happening until his ears sprouted huge donkey ears and his tail began to wag. "I'm a puppet," he said. "I shouldn't have a tail." As he looked at that, he cried for Jiminy Cricket to come and save him. When Jiminy Cricket saw his altered state, he said, "Oh, what happened? Well, how are we going to explain this to your father? What are we going to do?" So then Jiminy Cricket decided to push him into the water, into the sea, so that he can stop the transformation. Pinocchio was so scared, he swam, and he swam until he got home. When he got home, they opened the door. There was no one home. "Where's my father?" "Papa?" he cried. He couldn't find him at all. He then found out that his father went in search for him. But when he was searching for him, he was unfortunately eaten by a big whale. Jiminy Cricket decided, "I'll help you, Pinocchio. We're going to go off and find that whale." So they went off on a journey looking for Giuseppe, his father. And when he found them, they found a way to get the whale to go ahead and eat them. And when he swallowed them, the big whale went ahead and swallowed them whole. And they were in his belly. So now that the Pinocchio and Jimmy the Cricket are in the belly, they get to meet Dad again. And they hug and they give enduring love to each other. And they say, "Oh, how much have I missed you?" But then Geppetto stops and he thinks, "What are you doing in here? I don't want you to be as he shakes Pinocchio, Pinocchio then says, "But Papa, I have an idea. I think that if we can get this whale to sneeze, he'll spit us out like pie." So they went ahead and they started a fire. Once that fire was started, sure enough, Pinocchio was right. The whale let out a huge achoo! And it was a huge whale like achoo, so everything just came out, including Pinocchio and his father. Once he left, or once they were out of the whale, the blue fairy came back. And she streamed down and she said to him, "Pinocchio, you have proven yourself to be brave, honest, and selfless. For this very reason, I will turn you into a real boy." With a shake of her wand, Pinocchio was then instantly turned into a real boy. Now, the moral of this story was that it is important not to lie, because as the blue fairy told Pinocchio, lies begin to grow and grow and grow until they're as plain as the nose on your face. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you guys have a good day. Happy Sunday.